Okay, so we're going to be installing this sliding glass door system. And so I'm going to go over it. I really am always impressed with the pricing that they can get these things out to you for. We're going to be installing 3/8 inch thick glass, the stuff that I normally order from for custom glass enclosures. And these kits that come in a variation, now they're all different, so they all have different sizes. You have to pay attention to what your opening is. And I always recommend ordering these shower doors after you have the tile up, because if you're unplumb, if you're, you really need to get that final measurement in between the walls. Not necessarily before ordering this, but at least having a really good idea of what it's going to be. Because some of these have no allowance for unplumb walls, so the walls that are unplumb or unlevel, and others give you a variation. And the one that I'm installing gives me about a 1/4 inch of variation of unplumbness for it to work. And it's a sliding door system, so honestly, there's a little bit more than that I can get out of it. So, it's all fairly decent hardware. And I tell you what, I mean, if I ordered this hardware separately and ordered custom glass locally, it'd literally be double the cost. So there's a lot of reasons to go with this. The only problem is they're limited in sizes, and if you had a bench or something like that, that's all custom. So, but since this is a smaller bathroom, it's going to work out perfectly, because I do recommend a sliding glass door in a smaller bathroom. You just don't have the room for the swing. And even in this 4-foot shower it's swinging in, you're going to be kind of cramped to get around the door to close it. So you're better off to be with a slider, plus with this the small proximity of the shower faucet and everything. The slider doors are actually a little bit better sealed because they have a track at the bottom, and they contain the water better. Okay, so you want to check for levelness. So that's pretty level on that wall, and I'm fairly level on this wall. So where my difference in measurement is basically these bottom tiles that are kicking out slightly. Not a huge deal, because the doors are not necessarily going to be going straight up against the wall, because the way the track system works, it's actually going to be buffered out a little bit. So that difference, so my walls are plumb, it's just, so yeah, 45 3/8 at the top, and at the bottom it's 45. We'll actually make that a 45 3/16. So it's 3/16 off on the bottom, and that's basically just the bottom tile that I have probably kicked out a little bit, it looks like. So, but it's a good reference to tell. I mean, the most important thing is that this is going to be fairly plumb. So the top track, so this big rail here is the top track, and then you have one that's the same length. This little skinny guy is the bottom track. So the bottom track, you want to just deduct a 1/16 off of that. So we had 45 3/16. We're going to make it 45 1/8. And then the top, you want to deduct a 1/4 inch off. So again, we were just double check. So 45 1/8. So they actually become the same measurement, which is kind of odd. Normally they're not the same measurement, but the way that the base kicks out, that's just the way it is. So then we're going to cut this on the chop saw. Okay, so this has a little bump in a little bit. This is where you're going to put your silicone. But we're going to put this right on that joint between the shower floor, where basically your transition on your shower. And so these little guys, so you need to use one for a spacer, and basically we need to be 1 1/8 inch. So let's just make a little mark here of our edging. Okay, so that's going to be the edge of our outside edge of this, and we want to measure over 1 1/8 inch for this block. So that block is going to sit 1 1/8 inch away from that line. So 1 1/8 inch. All right, so then this is where we're going to be drilling a hole for our mounting bracket. Same thing on the other side. Put this up against the wall. Use this as a guide for the reference away from the wall. And then we're going to be 1.125" to the edge of that as well. So we'll just put a little mark here, and then we'll mark where our hole has to be. Okay, so what I like to use are these Diamond Max 1/4" bits. So they're really great for porcelain tiles, and they last a long time. So, okay, so what you want to do is take a piece of your tile. So this is really important because you don't want to penetrate your waterproofing that you spend so much money on. So what I would do is just set this stopper on your drill. If you don't have one, you can also just, I mean, you technically could just mark the edge of your bit where you need it to stop, you know, just by referencing it here and then just putting a mark, and then just stop your bit at that point. So we'll just have both of these for reference, but the stopper mechanism really does help out and ensures that you're not going to go any further. So we'll do the same thing on this side. And honestly, this thing is really kind of in the way on this one. I'm having a hard time seeing it. Okay. And we also want to find the center here. So this will be 1.125" to the edge. So that'll be the center here. Okay, so what we're going to use is this Gorilla epoxy glue here. And then we're going to just use these plug anchors to anchor that. So just squeeze some of this out and make sure you mix it well together. So the great thing about this epoxy too is it'll really bond that metal to even to the tile too. So just make sure we get these in these holes. Just basically stick these anchors in there. Okay, so we'll just add a little bit more to the bottom of these. So you want to measure these screws that they come with. I'll just use this as a reference, and we can just cut them with some linesmans. So they're not going to anchor very tightly, but that epoxy is going to hold everything together very nicely here. So cut an anchor. Put this in the hole with the epoxy there. Okay, so on your bottom threshold, I always recommend to get a good silicone. This is made by CRL. Some of the best stuff out there. It's really, really super clear, and it really does a great job of doing things for glass enclosure. So we'll put a nice generous bead on the bottom of this track. We'll just place this right on that area that we want it. We'll get some silicone inside of this channel. This will adhere to our blocking. Okay, so we'll just let that set up for half an hour. We'll take lunch. I'll come back and set the rest here. Maybe we should try to do the wall part first too.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay, so these strips, same thing as the bottom threshold basically, just sits on top of that track. You just want to make sure you get a plumb mark for it before you silicone it into place. No screws or nothing, just silicone. So that looks good. So I'll just mark this so we have reference. So this is the one part of this shower door system I wasn't 100% happy with, and that is the fact that the side channels don't have anything to anchor into the wall. So what I had to do was use a block to make sure that everything's tight against the wall. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I was mentioning that my bottom tile was kind of bumped out at the bottom a little bit. So that caused a little bit of a void for the side channels. So I'm putting a block in here so that when once that silicone sets up, we'll be in good shape. I just needed something to press that against the wall so it's nice and tight. So there's always ways around problems that you might have created yourself. So hopefully this tip helps you out. Okay, so we want to go 71 1/8 off the bottom of the floor for our top brackets. So there's the bottom of this. So we'll measure over 1 inch from the outside edge of that transition, and then we're 71 1/8 off the floor. Okay, so you got these little set screw pieces in. Okay, so you have these little seals for when the door pushes into the track here. So this gets stuck. So basically it's an L. So this little flap goes towards the inside of the shower, and you just put it on the side of this. So you just place these right on the edge. So you could see on this guy here how the reveal around this is not all even, and the reason for that is so you can lift the glass and adjust it. So we'll adjust it after we get into the door to see exactly what we need. But basically, that's the reason that there's a little bit of a difference there. Okay, so then the outside door just goes on exactly the same way, and then remember you can adjust the rollers to get that 1/4 inch difference. But in this instance, we had plumb walls, so you just set the outside door on top. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage of that. I don't know how our camera went dead or something didn't capture that, but it's pretty much the same process. At this point, it really is easy. It's just a matter of setting those doors in place. So be sure to check out the links below in the description. I definitely have a lot of information down there to help you out with your bathroom remodeling project. Enroll in a course. That would be really helpful to this platform, but also it'll benefit you greatly if you plan on doing a bathroom remodel. That's really what all this channel is about simplifying bathroom remodeling and making things easier for you. Why learn things the hard way if you can learn from experience? So thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.